I am the Good Shepherd. In Greek, kalos, the beautiful shepherd. Here, as far as all my memories are concerned, is that beauty. As a child, as an adolescent, indeed until I entered the monastery in 1976, this was over my head. And I would look to it when I was growing up into the eyes of this little picture which said it all. He cares. And the little sheep was me in his arms, being carried safely. It's all there. The still waters are there. The shepherd's crook is there. If a child is kept close to the Good Shepherd, then the chances are that also he'll be kept safe. Remember that, you parents. Keep the child safe. The wolves are all around you, and right now they're in your pocket and on screens. They don't have to have artificial them to dominate their soul. Give them quality time. Play with them. Invest. The shepherd. We can therefore be shepherds for each other. If you'll forgive me, I'll give a few autobiographical notes, as it were, in this homily, because one remembers the practical bits, the visual aids, the living parables, people who can influence us and accompany us and indeed protect us and guide us. Woe is the soul that has no one to protect it and follow it through. We need each other, and God uses us to help each other. We're in danger if we have not a soul that we can share with. A burden shared is a burden halved. Remember that next time you're really down. One friend is enough to keep you from disaster. How many suicides could have been avoided had there been one open ear and one beating heart? One thinks, as one looks back, all of us, on people who have guided us, influenced us, and I'll never forget those growing years, in pre-adolescence actually, when for about 3 years, from Sunday to Sunday, I'd have my Sunday school teacher, a man of God. How much one has in one's hands in those years, between 11 and 14. A massive power of influence from Sunday to Sunday. It just happens that he was not only a man of prayer, but of great culture. I'll give you a few concrete examples. He would take us places on a Saturday in a minibus, and even on a Sunday he would take us to different places around Cardiff to experience other liturgies, e.g. incense intoxication at the Greek Orthodox Church. Wow! That was something else. He would also take us to the Quakers to get calmed down and know how to listen. He would take us also, notice, to the Roman Catholic Cathedral and explain that over there, I asked him, what is it? Well, he explained, Roman Catholics, when they consecrate the bread and wine, don't believe that it comes back into bread and wine afterwards. It's still the body of Christ for them. And to explain, it's kept there. It hit me for the first time. That means that their churches are far more than buildings. If that's the case, logically, things follow. He would also get us to do plays. He would also get us to learn things and recite them. One day, he had us reciting before the whole chapel of the vestry the history of the translation of the scriptures from the early church down to our time, passing through St. Jerome, when I was Jerome. And at one point, we were acting this out in a medieval cloister, showing the importance of the scriptoria. And we had the lights out, and we had to process in like this, at the speed of peas and chips, to get the same pace all through. And then we had to do something. We had to genuflect before a crucifix. That's not on. My evangelical ignition started, and I protested in my loudest Welsh. And he, in his calmest Welsh, replied, Alun Idris, if it were not for the Catholic Church, you publication of actually the 6th chapter of St. John. Ooh, what's all this about? And do you know that this good Protestant Sunday school teacher, Oxford graduate and eventual judge, calmly said in Welsh, the experts believe that this is about the Eucharist. What? And he was telling me, therefore, that we were part of something far greater. I make a jump. He would take us to places of importance, and these are bits, remember, a child never forgets, e.g., the pulpit. He took us to the pulpit in Talgath, where a sermon changed the history of Wales. It was in this pulpit that the young and wayward Hywel Harris heard this sermon from the Reverend Pritchard on Palm Sunday. You must pray. You tell me you're not fit to pray. You must come to communion. You tell me you're not fit to come to communion. Well, if you're not fit to pray, you're not fit to live. If you're not fit to live, you're not fit to die. That was the turning point in the greatest preacher of Wales, possibly Hywel Harris. And our Sunday school teacher commented, also taking us to other places, I'll come to that in a minute, these people put Wales on fire. The hurricane. Preaching and singing. He took us to Pantycelyn, from which about 1,000 hymns came out. William Williams, the greatest hymn writer of Wales. I still sing them to this day in 4-part harmony. This, then, was the wider picture. He was someone who had a massive influence for good, which you in your sector can also have if you have a child in your hand. While the child is still open, he's tabula rasa, and the first messages are the ones that stay forever. I move on. Eventually, I'm making a huge jump in time. I was back in Wales doing theology, and eventually my spiritual father sent me back to Ireland. And because there was trouble here, I was sent urgently. Now this is the point. As a result of one man. This letter came from Italy, from this man who is not long deceased, Père André. He knew of the trouble that we had, and the letter came like this. You have a choice. You can either look for ordination from a local bishop, or you can come to us. And he calmly laid the question like this, the advantages. The advantage of coming to a place where the liturgy is central is that for the rest of your life you will have your time punctuated by this worship of majesty. And he added one phrase which I've never forgotten, which is profoundly true. Cela vous donne une grande sérénité. That gives you a great serenity. And the difference is huge. Being regulated by the old medieval bell, all the time, day and night, calmly singing, as it was in Latin actually, in the same medieval church, with clouds of incense every day, facing the rising sun on the high altar as we kept. It was hugely different from running around in a parish. But it was balanced, and this is where I want to land. It was the same work, but anchored in serenity. I'll show you an example. Between what it comes to in preaching to a changing church, I mean a different congregation from Sunday to Sunday, e.g. in the summer months, 500 people before you that you'll never see again, and what happened suddenly. It was this. One day, the Archbishop phoned, and I didn't answer the phone. He wanted the prior. There was a gap up the mountain there, he wanted one of us to fill in that gap regularly. The prior put it to the sub-prior, who wasn't amused. Okay, the Archbishop accepted that. Sometime later, I was back in my cell, and something had happened in the meantime. The prior had asked me suddenly, could you go up to Sejano, that village up on the mountain? There's a dead person who has to be buried. So off I went myself, and he told me, ask in the sacristy something about the person's life. So I did. She had been in an irregular union for years, and had died about 90 years old, never reconciled. And that was it. I thought to myself, oh no, they call us after and not before. So I came back and wrote a poem on that, and the prior picked up. So this was his wedge. I was in my cell, and the phone rang again, and I answered it. It was the Archbishop once again, who wanted to speak to the prior. And this time I had an inkling what it could be about, and I was right. Because immediately afterwards the prior called me in, and he buttered it up like this. I see that you have a fellow feeling for Sejana. You have a feeling of pastoral care for these souls who haven't got a priest. And I was getting the message very clearly. Next thing I knew it, would you like to fill in that gap? Okay, obedience. That meant, therefore, a big change. On a Sunday morning, it was no longer with the brethren in a full church. It was on a mountain with, now, at first, a quarter-full church. Now I get to the point. This was a big difference. You're handling, as a shepherd, souls, concrete souls that you're meeting regularly. And what is more, in Italy at this time of year, Eastertide, one does a blitz over the whole parish, the whole area, the whole country actually. They mobilize all the priests, and all the houses have to be visited and blessed. A massive operation, and very few say no. It's part of the culture. The priest comes around to the houses, they spring clean, you go around the bedrooms, they're all spick and span because the priest is coming. And you meet them in their context. It's hugely different. Massively different. And then, eventually, they start asking, let's do something as a parish together. What can we do? Let's go to Loreto. So the whole parish went to Loreto. We took them there in a bus. Now tell me, that's very different. Getting to know your people very closely, heart to heart. It's a big difference with regard to the ministry. And so, bit by bit, I saw what happens. They start to go to confession. They stop going to communion easily, unless they've been to confession first. They also start coming back. Word gets round, and the church filled and filled. And what is more, a young man came up and thought of the priesthood, and he's now a priest in Siena. They took him in before he finished his leaving cert. They're very good in Siena. They let you do it from the seminary. A good man, Emmanuel. All because, now what? There's a shepherd present, and it's a huge difference. You take away the shepherd physically, and the parish goes down. The vocations disappear. People die without the sacraments. The children don't get the faith. It's a massive difference. Nothing can take the place of the shepherd close to his people. No amount of bureaucracy can take its place. No amount of delegation to the lay people can take its place. Only one thing can happen. If the priest is not there, the sheep are lost. There's one other element too. We are sheep and shepherds for each other. We need a word of wisdom, or at least a listening ear. I conclude with this. Grace has an effect also on our humanity. It opens our soul because we respect and reverence the soul before us as it were a tabernacle. We listen and we enter in. And we are friends to those who need us. That is ministry also, even on the human level. Pick it up and do it. I conclude. We have just lost a great saint, I tell you. Joseph Ratzinger was a great brain. He was a man of God, and he was, I tell you, a saint. I've just finished reading the inside story about him, which the Vatican was nervous about. It came out in Italian, it started out in English. It's Georg Gensfein's memoirs. The one who was next to him all those years, his private secretary. He's now been promoted to Costa Rica. And this comes out, the end. He new things, and he calmly tells the story. Do you know that the amount of warmth and love and peaceful joy and even humour in the papal household, in the monastery, in the papal gardens where he was, in the Vatican, was serene and loving and intensely peaceful. Every Sunday until he lost his voice, the Holy Father would give a gem of a homily. He would spend the week in Lectio Divina preparing the readings, and the sisters, there were 4 of them, Memores Domini, they were so enthused that every word was taken down, and all his homilies potentially there, all those years, in that he lost his voice. But there is more. The warmth of soul and fellowship between those two, Pope and Genswein, is something which warms the heart. They understood each other perfectly. The twinkle in the eye, even the little jokes in Latin. They were humanly and divinely linked. I won't go into detail, I hope it'll come out in English eventually. But at the end of it, this comes through. The person who puts all this together, Saverio Gaeta, wrote the whole life of John Paul II. And for that, he had access to intimate archives. And one thing he discovered by chance was this. A very close friend of Padre Pio, spiritual child, got this from Padre Pio's lips. Padre Pio shared the encounter he'd had with the then fairly young Karol Wojtyla, and had told him he'd be Pope. Okay? But then this bit came out when talking to this other person, and it's in the archives of canonization. Regarding that person, and he described this Polish cleric, he one day, as well as being Pope, will be a great fisher of souls, fisher of men. And he went on. And his successor will be ampiamente, he will amply, largely, profusely confirm his brethren in the faith. And he went on, he whispered this bit to his friend, and they'll both be proclaimed saints.
Sepultus
scripturas,
ed ascendit in caelum, sed exact desteram Patris.
et iterum venturus est cum gloria, iudicare vivos et mortuos, cuius veni non erit finis.
Et in Spiritus Sanctum Dominum, et vivificantem, qui et Patre Filii